Let me make,
This meeting is being recorded.
yeah. One of the announcements, we have Dr. Corey Smith, who's on the commission, who gave us his formal resignation, given his previous commitments, and also his work schedule as a particular doctor. So he has officially resigned from the committee, which we will go into detail later at the end, as we talk about having other individuals join, and I'll wait till the end to make comments on that. But he's officially resigned from the committee. So I wanted to make that announcement. Is there any on the unreadiness? Is there any other announcements at this time? And and honestly, I want to, well, let me make a couple other announcements. Our new liaison from the township is Councilwoman Tammy Williams. We welcome her to the committee. She's has done an outstanding job as it pertains to what she's done as it relates to the community. But overall, her experience in business and her real estate experience is going to serve us well on this committee. So Tammy, welcome, Councilwoman. I want to also welcome Ms. Adams from zoning, who has been in the zoning office. It's going to be imperative that we have conversation and dialogue as we go through economic development. Last year, it was not something that was on my purview because I was getting kind of the lay of the land of what was actually kind of getting the lay of the land of what the town and how the town was actually zoned. But I am going to look to have her guidance as we go and we move forward, trying to reset and look at options of the town, giving our new business ventures. Any other announcements or unreadiness? Okay. If not, let's go through and move through the agenda as it relates to roll call. John Wayman Henry, Chair, who's here? Tammy?
Yes, all right. So we have, you want me to do roll call?
Yeah, you can do roll call.
All right, of course, Chairman Henry is here. Mr. Rosu, is that correct pronunciation? Alfred Rosu?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. Abdul Yassin?
Here.
Mr. Ron Raymond will be joining us late this evening, and myself, and we're all present. So according to the roster and the development of the commission, we have 3 spots that are open and under the appointment of the mayor.
Okay. And I think that's towards the end of our agenda. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Councilwoman. Okay. So approval of minutes from last meeting, we had none and had no issues. So I'm going to move forward to West Orange development zones and kind of the overview. I'm gonna let Miss Adams lead this portion of the call in regards to zoning, what our current zoning areas are, especially in some of our business districts. But given that there may be some people on this particular call or who are logging in who may either want to open up a business or where we're zoning as it pertains to one of the things that we've opted into is cannabis, which everybody knows at this particular point. So if you want to give us an idea, Ms. Adams, of where we are from the zoning, and if you guys want to look at the zoning map, and I'll let her take it from here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John, and to the commission for the invitation. I am the zoning official. I'm Denise Gary Adams, and in charge also of the boards, which be the planning and zoning boards, and I also supervise property maintenance and code enforcement. So as my primary position is zoning official, one of the things is that we maintain the zoning map. So if the Zoom master would share that so that everyone can see it, and I'll take us on a little walkable tour and explain some of the zones, permitted uses, so that the commission can kind of create a framework in regards to economic development. So that would be important. That's the first step. So can we share the
Shannon, I just sent that to you.
zoning map?
Hold on for 1 second too.
Thank you.
Let's see.
All right, sure, I'm posting it now.
So while he's sharing that, I'll just go a little bit over what our zoning map entails. So West Orange is a very diverse community. We have a variety of residential home stock. So we can go from the R1 zone to the RT zone. We have 7 residential zones, which some of the minimum lot sizes, if you live in Llewellyn Park, could be 80,000 square feet per lot, down to the RT zone where we have our multifamilies. And those minimum lot sizes could be as small as 5,000 square feet. So within West Orange, we have 7 different residential zones. And you'll see those as you see from the R1 zone
Mhm.
and Llewellyn Park, down, and I'm going to come all the way down to almost the Montclair area where where we have our 1, 2, and 3 family area zoning. Over to the left also in the Valley area, you'll see the RT zoning. So those are your multifamilies. And then you go into, say, the Gregory area. You have the R5 zone with those lot sizes of 10,000 square feet. You can come up, as they say, up the hill to the St. Cloud area, R5 zoning. Up above Pleasant Valley Way, it's R4 zoning, 15,000 square feet. So these particular zones, these 7 zones residential that go throughout the township are varied and based on minimum lot size. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on residential because I think we're more concentrated on the business zones. So let's talk about them. There are 19 zones within the township. And if I take you, we're going to start at the border of Montclair. You see where my pointer is? So we're down by the Montclair area on Harrison Avenue. Can everybody see my pointer?
Let's see.
I'm circling it. My pointer needs to be not white because the map is white. I don't know if you can see it. I'm like circling down at the bottom right-hand corner. Bottom right-hand corner on Harrison Avenue. Anybody been to Harrison Avenue?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm on Harrison Avenue and we have 2 distinct business zones that travel the Harrison Avenue area. If you're going up to the corner of Eagle Rock Avenue, you see all that? That's your B1 zone. I know it's small. That's the B1 zone. And then it goes over to the left, down Main Street. And there's B1 and B2 zoning. I'll explain the different zoning later. It comes down, and then we're on Main Street. And it goes across. You see all these different zones, OB1, OB2. And then we get into the Valley area, South Valley, Valley Road, and we go all the way over to South Orange. So if you see this bottom portion of West Orange, a lot of that is mixed use zone, B1 and B2. B1, retail, commercial zoning. B2 is the same. So when you walk down Main Street, you're going to see commercial properties, right? But you're going to see residential on top. That's what we call mixed use zoning. So that zoning has been there a long time. That zoning hasn't changed probably in the last 40, 50 years, if not before that. That's the older part of town. If you talk to Joe Fagan, that's where they had the car. People didn't have cars, and the railroad tracks and everything were there. So people have commercial properties, but they lived upstairs. Okay, so that's B1 and B2 zoning. That zoning is also, if you go up at the top and follow my arrow, we're up now around the Pleasantdale area. Pleasant Valley Way, Eagle Rock Avenue. There's also B1 and B2 zoning in those areas also. Okay, that would be to the left of, that would be to the left of where the current zoning is for the Whole Foods area, which is the PC zone. I'll go into that later. But the B1 and B2 areas are filtered all throughout West Orange. And that is the most flexible type of zoning there is because you are allowed residential and commercial. Okay. Now let's talk about, there's two distinct areas that are already being developed. And that is, you see this purple here?
Mhm.
I'm right in the middle. Okay. So
Yes.
that is Essex Green Mall. We already know that Essex Green, the Clarion Partners came before the zoning board in 2018 prior to COVID, and they came to do a complete redevelopment of that area. That's a PC zone, and then I'm going to move over. We only have one more. You see where that is, that PC above that green? That is Whole Foods. I wish I had a different pointer.
Okay.
So you see where this green is? It says enter to, if you would like to mark up the, no, I don't want to mark up the
Where is that? Where is that? Where is that? Where is that, Miss Adams, in comparison to the purple?
So I'm gonna move over to the, you see where the green is? Right
Yes.
above the green.
Where the R1 green is?
You
Yeah.
see where the green is?
Yes.
Okay, so that's Essex County, that's the reservation. Across the street is Whole Foods.
Yes. Okay.
So you
got
see
it.
that PC zone? We have two PC zones. That one, and then you go
Yes.
over to the left, the purple, which is Essex Executive Drive redevelopment and Essex Green. So both of those properties are in the midst of major multi-million-dollar renovation. If you've been to Essex Green, you see that, thank you so much. You see that Starbucks is already there. They are going to be a drive-through. They're completing their interior renovations, and this is a whole multi-year redevelopment in this area. They're upgrading what used to be the old strip malls. When I move back over to Kmart, Kmart will be doing the same thing. As you know, Kmart no longer exists under Sears Corporation, and that will be ding, 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 Target. We're very excited that Target is going to be going into the Kmart Center. That's going to be another multi-million-dollar development. They're going to be coming before the planning board probably, unless they change some of their uses. So you're going to have the Whole Foods, Kmart, and I'm sorry, not Kmart, Target. And Target will be taking over some of the other uses to the right. From what I understand, they will be taking over the dollar store and possibly Staples. So that entire area over to the right of Whole Foods will be a Target. And that will be a new concept for them. I don't want to go too much into the application, but it would be a new type of concept under the Target brand. And that's going to be bringing in hundreds of jobs to the township, just so you know. Okay. So we have, and that PC is called planned commercial. So those are malls or strip malls that have planned commercial development inside. So we have two of them, Essex Green, and then you have the Whole Foods Plaza. Okay. Now, let me just talk about our I zones, because there's only two areas, and those are the industrial zones in town. The industrial zones are tagged under the cannabis ordinance for cultivation. That's the only zone where cultivation is going to be allowed. So I'm coming down, if you can see my arrow, I'm coming down to the Ashland area, Ashland, Watchung Avenue area. So you're coming all the way down to almost the orange border. If you can see my circle, you see that little eye? See that little eye where I'm circling? It's right to the left of the green area. You see that?
Yes.
Can you see that? Okay, so that's the Watchung Avenue area. So if you were to run parallel to Main Street and go closer to the orange border, that is the industrial zone. In that zone, you have businesses, some industrial businesses, and also across the street are residential homes, multifamilies. Those homes have been there probably since the 1930s and 40s, but that really was always meant to be an industrial zone where you would have the big businesses with trucks and ladders and things of that nature. That is one of the areas where cultivation of cannabis is going to be allowed. Okay. The next area is when I'm going to go over to the left. So we're gonna go down to orange again. We're going all the way to the left. And I don't know if you can see this little eye on the orange border where the 7-Eleven is. Where the 7-Eleven and Central Avenue. Central Avenue runs from Orange into West Orange. You see that area? This is where the Output Group will be building their new building, the new multifamily. It's gonna be, I forgot, 60 apartments. I forgot the number of apartments, but they've already gotten approval from the planning board. It's gonna go next door to 22. Thank you so much. It's gonna go next door to 22 Central. So that area is already being developed for housing to feed into what we have around the corner, which is the Lunar Stage. So we have the Arts Center there, right? And this committee should really look at what are we doing as far as transportation? So you have an arts area there. How can people get to that? From what I understand, there's been some talks with New Jersey Transit as far as opening up and revitalizing the train station that's down the street and around the corner from Central Avenue. So people would be able to take the train, get off, and go to Luna Stage, our small theater. There's a police substation there. There's going to be housing there. And we have some residential and smaller commercial properties there. That's also the other area where cannabis cultivation would be allowed. Okay. So we only have 2 of those zones. That's I there, and then you got to come all the way to the right, and then it's the Watchung area. Any questions so far about that?
So without going into too much detail, Ms. Adams, and it's something we can table it because we're going to need your help. In fact, one of the things, if you're not tied up, and I'll have this conversation with Madam Councilwoman, is that I'll make this recommendation to the mayor that somebody from zoning and planning needs to be on the economic development as we're having these dialogues and conversations. It makes it a lot easier than coming back. But it's possible the town, and I'll let Madam Councilwoman go further in this if she wouldn't mind, but it seems like we're going to lose one of our industrial zones in the downtown redevelopment, right? Without going too much into detail. So in order for us to be compliant as it relates to new business and it relates to cultivation, you know, we're going to probably need to have some type of recommendation from zoning and planning as to do people come in and ask for some type of variance, or do we have to then figure out what we're going to look at as something being permissible, because we're probably going to lose a zone of industrial.
Okay, so it wouldn't be that it would be, well, that's something you guys can talk about, I guess, offline. It wouldn't be something that maybe we would split that I zone, especially the front part of it, and leave the rest. I don't know. That's just off the top of my head, that we don't lose the entire zone, or maybe expand it a little bit more over. Yeah, to the right. So that's something that I guess could be talked about offline. And I deal with Paul, the planner. That's something that really has to come from, you know, the administration and the council people, their recommendation as to where. That did come up in the meeting yesterday, that the I zone is limited. So that's something that, you know, we're gonna have to look at.
So one of the points that Dr. Bagoff made is what will be very helpful, especially with the cannabis zoning, is to have a map overlay. So that was one of the things that was not provided last night. But a map overlay with the schools, so that we'll know exactly where the schools are in proximity to the I zone, and exactly what spaces are actually available. Because again, if there are no spaces that can accommodate cannabis, then of course we have a utility issue. So we have to make sure whether it needs to be expanded or some type of concession provided. That's definitely what they said that would have to be considered at the next meeting.
Thank you. So this I zone down in the Watchung area, I'm not aware of any spaces that are available. The one on Central Avenue, I don't know if you've ever driven the town on Central Avenue. There's an old credit union that's been abandoned for quite some time. And I know I've been getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of cannabis cultivation businesses are interested in that particular parcel. It is rather large, and it's across the street from where that residential building will be built. Okay.
Yeah, which was, yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So those are the two I zones. As far as other areas with economic development, I would seriously also up above, let's see, where am I? On Pleasant Valley Way, if you go down into the Pleasantdale area, there are some commercial businesses due to COVID that just didn't make it. So we're starting to see a lot of commercial buildings that are open for sale and for lease. So that really is an area of opportunity there in the Pleasantdale section. And I am specifically speaking of Eagle Rock and Pleasant Valley Way going toward Verona. There's some spaces in there that have come open due to COVID. Various businesses, didn't make it.
Gary Adams.
Sure.
Through the chair, if I may. A question. So what goes into reclassifying a zone, or that's like something that does not happen?
So that's a great question. So the master plan, which we just did in 2019, we're required to do that every 10 years, looks at the entire town and says, hey, what fits, what doesn't fit? And some of this red is some of the recommendations that were made and changed. If you want to put, I'm making it up, a bubblegum store where a bubblegum store isn't allowed, you would need to come to the zoning board. If it's a conditional use, such as cannabis, you have to meet certain conditions and then you come to the planning board. Changing the zones, most towns don't usually do that. They might make it a conditional use. So churches, we want churches to have a certain amount of parking, certain amount of signage. So it's a conditional use in certain zones. So that's a great question. You know why? Because the world has changed, right? I've been doing this job for a minute, and there's uses now that we never thought about 5, 10, 15 years ago, that maybe we need to go back with the planner, Paul Greigel, and say, hey, we want these type of uses included in these particular zones, whatever the administration would deem necessary. Like now in the PC zone, we allow microbreweries. We never allowed that before. That's a new use, right? My husband's a big beer guy, so he's always going to a brewery. So we probably need to look at what we want West Orange to look at. If we want, we want to have a microcosm of what the world looks like, then we need to look at all those different uses and maybe include them into the current zoning.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any more questions, or you have
No, the only other thing I want to talk about is the office building zone. And we have two. If you go at the top, I'm all the way at the top, almost by Short Hills. You see that OB2 zone? We have a few.
to the left, Shannon?
Can you see where the green is? Up at the top where, yes. So that is 769 Norfield Avenue. That building has been abandoned for some time. It went into foreclosure. There is a developer that is coming before the board to develop that property. Okay. And I think we need to look at these office building zones because not to reduce the amount, but maybe to look at adding uses, because COVID showed some occupations you can work from home, right? Maybe this type of space is not needed in that as that particular use of it, if that makes sense. So maybe you don't need a huge office building with 30 offices. Maybe it gets reduced and there's other type of uses that can go in there. So you have that at the top. If you come down, you have some other office buildings on Main Street.
80 Main Street is
80 Main, some of the large we have where Bank of America is, that large building across the street from Town Hall. So maybe we want to look at having some addition, I don't know what those uses are, something that the administration would say, hey, this is something that maybe we want to add as a permitted use in an office building zone. Because that type of zoning is changing, the world is changing, people are working from home, and maybe there are I think, I don't know, maybe there's small offices that people can rent. If you're not working from home, I don't know. I'm just, thinking out loud. There's other ways to utilize the office building. So that could be something else that you tackle. I think that's it. Those are also all the business zones. I didn't really want to go into the residential zones because that's really not, I think, what we need to do. And then the only other area I wanted to tackle is here along this B2 zone. This is along Mason Place, Rock Spring Avenue. This is all like the St. Cloud Avenue area and Turtleback Zoo. We know the Turtleback Zoo is constantly increasing its footprint. They have millions of visitors every day. So I don't know what the commission would want to do with that area. There's some strip malls there. There's a restaurant there. But there may be some opportunities in that area also.
That's also where the Essex House is.
Yes, yes,
Essex
in the
House
Essex
is-
House. Yep, that's a big chunk of
Right.
land that came before the board. So we're talking years ago. So they came to the board to do a strip mall. Well, guess what? Who's doing strip malls anymore? No one.
Mhm.
So that's a prime piece of property next to a school, next to the zoo, that could be developed into something else.
Mhm. Yeah, they're doing they're doing the brand new school in the apartment building. We've
Correct.
met
That's
with
going to
the
be a
developer.
daycare. That's going to be
Yeah,
a daycare
daycare.
at 555
Daycare.
Northfield.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And that's
you
coming
have to,
along really well.
yeah, and they've done a good job
Mhm.
in compliance and so forth. So we've had me and the chief have met with them, and they've done an excellent job. Businesses that are going to support community, right? So
Sure.
that would be our task, is to look at those businesses that are going to give services to a growing community, and especially those things that are going to support housing. Anytime that you build housing, you're going to have some type of support system to support housing. And so that's something that we probably need to consider. There's been some conversation around food hall to take all of the existing buildings. All of these older businesses don't necessarily increase all their rent, but give them a nicer looking footprint so that they can actually conduct their businesses, and all of those places are in one area that looks actually nice and supports the community. So there's some developers out of Miami who've done some great concept jobs, and maybe on our next meeting we can start thinking about that. And I appreciate it, Ms. Adams.
Sure.
This is helpful, because this is some of the information that I did not know previously.
Thank you very
So,
much.
is there any other questions or on readiness, or any comments before we move forward?
I don't have any questions. I want to thank Ms. Gary Adams for providing this overview. It was great. It's very informative, and I echo Chairman your thoughts about adding someone to this body as it pertains to zoning. I mean, that's going to be very important as we move forward.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes, you can't have economic development and then not have zoning or planning, like
Sure.
now we're just I think the township is progressing in a manner where we need to seriously have these conversations and be formative as we're planning out the city. And I think we're going to have more participation when people get excited about knowing what's going on in their town, in their township. So I thank you, Ms. Adams. It's a wealth of knowledge that you have and that you share, that we don't have. A lot of us don't have that purview. So I appreciate it again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
In keeping it and making sure that we are on task and keeping with time constraints. Our next order of business is kind of recapping what happened in 2021. As you know, we had some issues as it pertains to COVID and some businesses being limited. But one of the major projects, and I'll let Madam Councilwoman go through some of this, but one of the main things that we did get achieved is to look at an asset. And one of those assets was Rock Springs, in which the town actually had and took control of we were able to get a operator to operate the restaurant and reopen Rock Springs, and that was a tremendous uh, asset to the community. It was from live music to food to special events. Madam Councilwoman has some of those events that that actually took place. Thank you, Shannon, for sharing some of these things. But we had a lot of major press. We had Black Santa, which basically had inclusion and diversity. That considering that West Orange had a lot of given the makeup of the town, and went off without a hitch and went extremely well. So it was a great space. The mayor was very supportive in his movement of this particular project, and it served us well. It increased sales. The town was able to make it profitable, and it also addressed the issue of going forward what we are going to be able to do with that particular space. But we now know and have proved that we don't necessarily need to sell it to developers, that we need to figure out what kind of public-private venture we could possibly do. So um, some of the highlights, and Madam Chairman, if you wouldn't mind reading some of the highlights that happened at Rock Spring.
Absolutely. So we know that in 2019, the township took over ownership of Rock Spring, which is an 18-hole golf course and country club facility. Some of the events last year included the CJ Morgan Foundation golf outing. That was the third year, if I'm not mistaken, that event did happen. Also, the Essex County Bar Association held their event there in September of 2021. 175 guests attended that event. The police officers of Essex County hosted an event with 90 guests in attendance. And of course, there were birthday parties and celebrations for individuals. And then there was the court-appointed special advocates, CASA, held their nonprofit fundraiser there in November of 2021, which included over 125 guests. Rock Spring, the restaurant, 1925, also held events during the summer, which were very well attended. Again, several private parties, birthday parties, and special events. So it is absolutely the crown jewel of West Orange as far as the township is concerned, and we're looking to continue advertising and promoting that asset.
Thank you, Madam Councilwoman. Is there any questions or comments that anybody has as it pertains to Rock Springs? Okay. If not, we can talk about downtown redevelopment and share a couple of things as it relates to that. And given that we have our council liaison here, I'll let her chime in as well. One of the things I want to comment on is that the town and between the administration and the council have taken or has done a remarkable job of basically taking back its area of downtown. For those of you who are aware, and at this point it's public notice, but the town was under litigation, basically taking some of that land and some of that development back based off of the default by previous developers. And so with some of that, or the majority of that being settled, the town now has the task of redeveloping its downtown area. And so with that being said, it is a remarkable moment and a historic moment for West Orange, because now you can actually develop your downtown area and basically moving forward so that the town in itself reaps the benefits. So we know how beautiful it is, but we also understand that we're going to need help with infrastructure and the growth of this particular township. And one of the first steps of securing developers and development and people is to make sure that we have services and have somewhere where people want to go. So that's my comment as it pertains to the redevelopment. Madam Councilwoman, if you want to talk about what the council did as it pertained to the downtown redevelopment area.
Certainly. So of course, we have terminated the relationship with the former designated redeveloper. Unfortunately, there is still some pending litigation, so we won't be able to go into too much detail about the status currently, but hopefully we are looking forward to moving forward with the process and presenting a tremendous opportunity for the township of West Orange in line with Thomas Edison and film development for our municipality. So again, that's still on the horizon, still trying to work out some pending matters of litigation. But as information is settled, we will bring more information to the community. One of the other things that we have done for the township of West Orange, as far as the council is concerned, is that we did deem the entire township an area in need of rehabilitation. What that does is to the benefit of the community is any improvements that you do on your property, your personal property, those tax increases that would normally be assessed in the immediate year will be extended over a 5-year period. So instead of having an immediate impact on your tax assessment, it will be expanded over a 5-year and adjusted over a 5-year period. So that's going to be a benefit. So for those of us who are spending time at home, more time at home, not going into places of employment, and looking to do some improvements on our own personal properties, this opportunity will give you that advantage and opportunity. Those are some of the things that we've done as far as the council is concerned. Again, just looking forward to continuing opportunity, seeking ways to bring revenue into the municipality. Right now, we know that our infrastructure is dated, and this is a wonderful time with the Build Back Better America plan for us to get on top of some opportunities. What we do know is with those opportunities, they do need to be shovel ready. So we are looking heavily on this commission to come up with some ideas to facilitate some opportunities and programs so that West Orange will be the beneficiary of some of those funds that'll be allocated for us to improve our community.
Thank you, Madam Councilwoman. Appreciate that. That was excellent. Is there any questions? Any comments? We also have in moving forward and just we touched upon it briefly with Ms. Adams from planning, but someone who sits on the Cannabis Commission is Abdur. Abdur, our next order of business is to talk a little bit about what has transpired with the Cannabis Commission, and ideally considering that we are trying to find businesses, and I've made this a point of finding businesses that are deemed for success if we're going to be involved in cannabis at all. Like a lot of us who have children, everybody, we are conservative, but we also understand that this is a business that is happening, and we decided that we took the time that we were going to opt in. And so we're going to take the time to actually opt in. We have mandates from the state when we did that. And so I'd like to hear from you a little bit on talking about what has happened thus far. I know that the applications have been processed or we posted those, but if you can go in a little bit of detail and touch on that a little bit.
Okay, so the township established a cannabis work group and commission because obviously, the voters here, I believe it was like 3/4 of the voting population support for cannabis. So clearly there's a desire to have cannabis businesses here in the township. So we've had a series of meetings. At this point, we were very sensitive to the December 15th date for opening up applications for cultivators and manufacturers. That was step one. So we took some actions to make sure that things were in order, and the council previously passed an ordinance to establish, the ability for us to have cannabis businesses in the first place. But after our actions, the process moved along to zoning and planning, as well as other administrative divisions within the township. As it stands right now, our last meeting, we finalized, excuse me, the application. And on Monday, the 31st of January, began the opening of the process. So now there is a posted application. And right now, as it stands, it's still strictly for cultivators and manufacturers. But we are moving towards readying ourselves for that process for the other categories that we permit in the township. And that date is March 15th. So there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of excitement. Again, Ms. Gary Adams's presentation was very helpful because, you know, a lot of folks are asking questions like, oh, well, why can't we permit things in R1s? And these are open meetings. So these are some of the questions that we sort of discussed before. But as it stands right now, of course, everyone's focus seems to be on retail. And again, that opens up on March 15th. The B1 and B2 zones are for retail, as well as other categories that we permit here. And cultivation is just in the I1 zones. So we've set up a meeting schedule that'll be posted on the website. Again, you'll find the same zoning map that was provided this evening, so everyone has sort of an idea. You know, we're making sure that everything happens efficiently so that once the applications come in, I believe we have a 2-week window for, you know, evaluating those applications and moving them along to the destinations that they need. In it, so that again, part of the process here is the task force issuing recommendations to the council, and then the council would then provide a letter of support based on their vote for a prospective licensee. So that's sort of where we are right now. You know, we're very excited. It's a lot of work. I'm sure myself, Chairman Henry, and my other colleagues on the commission, we look forward to the work. But you know, this is something that the public desires, and we want to do our due diligence. I will, you know, say in closing that we were sensitive to, you know, all the corners of the community in terms of weighing in on how we proceed. You know, so pieces like education and what that means, whether it's education between liaising with the school system, other stakeholders, and how we sort of tackle, you know, and wrap our heads around that we have this new business, and everyone around us and throughout New Jersey that's permitted the use has to do the same. Other issues like distances to the West Orange Board of Education buildings that are owned and operated. We made a decision for 100 feet, if I'm correct, right, Mr. Henry?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so 100 feet. And then there's some other tweaks and such that we're looking at in the ordinance because of, you know, it's just a process, if you will. So in terms of, you know, pricing for applications and so on and so forth. So there's still a lot of work ahead of us. It's an exciting time. I mean, just to hear the businesses that are coming before the planning board pretty soon, Target, amongst others, it's an exciting time to be in this space. So, you know, everyone's working hard and trying to get it done. So thank you.
Thank you, Abdur. And the only comment that I'll make here, and I want to make sure, because I want to go on record, because I had this conversation with the chief. You know, in dealing with cannabis with Governor Whitmer in Michigan, you know, it is with my hope that we're not trying to hide cannabis at this point in cultivation. Like it is legal. People can have fights on what their ideas and beliefs, which is one of the things I don't really want to get into. What I don't want is you want to put things in blemished neighborhoods or neighborhoods of poor means. And that is not something in which, and in fact, I'll have that conversation also with the mayor. That's not something that number one, that I'm going to even endorse, but I'm going to have a real conversation also as it pertains to council. Like we need to be out in front, whether you believe in the data of medical benefits or so forth, but if we're going to change our town, and one of the other things that I will address is that if we're going to treat it as such, I think we have issues, in my opinion, we have issues with liquor stores. Not every liquor store looks like a Wine Legends or a Total Wine. And I think it is an eyesore, considering I live in West Orange and I live in Llewellyn Park, and I come out and I see a bunch of advertising for liquor stores, and I think that is more harmful in a sense with younger children, which I have. So I have an issue or problems with a lot of things that we're going to have to address, and I think we address them in its entirety. We address cannabis, we address how we advertise alcohol or other substances that may be offensive to younger children. So I want to thank you, Abdur, for your comments. Is there any questions or any run-inness or any comments?
No, but Mr. Chairman, since we have Mr. Raymond on the phone and we know that with the Downtown West Orange Alliance, they do have a design team that is working on signage. So if he is in a position to speak, I would certainly ask him to comment on that.
Oh, of course.
Hi, Councilman. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
good. I was on the road. I just literally had a chance to get my thoughts together. So yes, absolutely. We so the Downtown Alliance, in conjunction with our mandate to be very supportive of businesses, we're also supportive of how do we improve upon their aesthetics, their engagement with the community, and their engagement with the town. So we make it a point to, as you were pointing out, Chairman, with the liquor stores, these are certain quote unquote eyesores. And for the better part of their existence, they've been okay to exist aesthetically how they've been. But I will tell you that there are a few, maybe one or two right now that are going through some changes with their signage. And in our design team, along with our zoning official, are taking a very proactive approach to how these stores and these places are perceived in the community. So we're very much engaged with making those changes that are in line with this commission's objective. So the commission definitely has 100% of the Downtown Alliance's support.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond.
Thank you so much, Ron.
Can I just make a point here? Again, I echo your sentiment. And again, this is something that my colleagues on the task force, really discuss. Like, where are we going with this industry? We have Chairman Matute Brown, Chairwoman Matute Brown, Councilwoman Matute Brown, Chief Abbott, yourself, myself, Councilwoman Castellino, Mr. Abdul Moore, Jonathan Redwine. We're all thinking about this, right? And one of the things that's really important to know is that by the statute, the cannabis statute, it does say in there that there's going to be nondescript signage and so on. So it's, I remember at one of our meetings at the Downtown Alliance where Mr. Raymond sits as the chair, we were peppered with a bunch of questions about this. And, we're thinking about something that's going to fit very neatly into our community here. It will be one of the crown jewels that we have here in the town. Is going to attract, the goal is to attract folks to come and frequent our businesses here. So we don't want any types of disruption in terms of eyesores and the like. We want something that's going to be these are going to be thriving businesses on our downtown corridor, and in fact, be anchors. So we all of us in the task force are acutely aware of, all the visual aspects and the aesthetics. And then we're also controlled by the state statute that says the same. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Yassin.
Does anyone have any other questions, comments, concerns as it pertains to cannabis and that business in West Orange? If not, and moving on to new business, one of the things on the agenda is what we're talking about is infrastructure money, which Madam Councilwoman touched on. And part of that, I actually have a meeting with Congressman Payne next week who sits on the Committee of Transportation and Infrastructure, and having conversations about projects in West Orange, a couple of them that are shovel ready or will be shovel ready within the next couple of months. And the biggest thing is looking at, or coming up with an idea of looking at our corridor of downtown, and with the anticipation that we're going to need help with infrastructure in order to even get development to come down a corridor. If any of you are familiar and know, of course, you're very familiar with whether it's Prospect or whether it's Main Street on at 4 o'clock. None of that has anything to do with development or that an area is overdeveloped. We don't have development. The reason that you have those traffic areas and those issues is because the town within itself, infrastructure, cannot support the number of residents currently the way that it's built out. So there is some infrastructure and there's some planning, which is why I'm happy to have Ms. Adams here, along with Councilman Williams, who has made the suggestion of having to work diligently with the planning board and zoning, because there are a number of things that have to be done, whether it's widening streets, whether it's figuring out where we're going to park. You can't build and have developers and put on developers to figure out some of these plans and ideas, because you don't want them to fail, and you don't want to have community nuisances with overdevelopment, and yet you haven't fixed infrastructure. So these are some of the conversations that I'm going to have with the congressman. I am hopeful that our redevelopment plan and some of those things that we're looking to do will work itself out to a point of that we are going to be moving forward, and with that have a plan. So as it relates to redevelopment, and as it relates to redevelopment and infrastructure, I'm having those conversations in those meetings next week, actually next Friday, and I will come back to the committee and share that information in which the congressman, based off that meeting. So is there any other comments or questions as it pertains to the infrastructure of West Orange? Okay. Seeing the other, and since Ron is on the phone, there's been some conversation as it relates to what are the potential revenue streams for the township. One of those things that were mentioned to us was, and this goes along with part of the infrastructure bill, was to figure out if the town could offer services as it pertains to its own internet and streaming services as it pertains to having that infrastructure in place for the township. So unnecessarily, instead of getting your internet from Verizon or so forth, the town could actually, have that service and provide that service, and almost you could box bill it. So that whether it's your water bill or whatever the case may be, but you have internet services, and you have high-speed internet services that would include to go around the town, but also the town could make revenue from its residents. And so I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was a good plan. I don't have all of the details of it, but when I do, but one of the things is that as it pertains to the infrastructure bill, that is one thing. If the town contracted a firm or a company who could actually do that, that money would be covered between the state and the federal government in order to build it out, which would not cost the town a lot of money in doing that. So that is my foresight, right? That's something that we're going to need anyway, because when you change the infrastructure downtown, you want to be able to give people free Wi-Fi and so forth. But you can also charge advertisers on that particular streaming service as well. And so while the town may not have all the knowledge of how that's done, we can incorporate and hire individuals to do that and use infrastructure money in order to do that. And that would be one of the revenue streams. Now, that's me. I'm looking for the rest of you guys to come up with different. That's mine, by the way. That would be mine. So I'm gonna look for the committee to look at other ideas, and me and Ron Raymond have had some of these conversations. But I'm excited about what the town, the progression of what the town looks like, and want to thank the mayor for allowing me to have a position to actually looking and seeking some of these things out in order to do that. So any comments or concerns or questions or unreadiness?
Well, I think that's a superb idea. Certainly modeling after what Newark has done and the capacity. We learned with COVID that we certainly need something. We didn't realize how many households did not have cable,
Correct.
access to cable. So certainly once COVID hit and schools were closed, that became a tremendous problem. So if that's something that we could do, and especially in a downtown environment where we can have a centralized location, for instance, if the children need, we have downtown with the with the community house, different facilities that could certainly utilize that service and provide access to the children for recreation as well as educational purposes. So that's a wonderful idea. I totally support that and want to see if we can make that happen.
Okay. Abdur?
Thank you, Chairman. Myself and Ron Raymond have talked previously about the idea of microgrids. I don't know, I'm still doing my homework on it, but it has to do with, I look at it from not only a power generation, for the power generation aspects of it, but when it comes to emergency management, the resilience part, because we're always hit with storms and outages and such. But it would certainly help with, if we're investing all the time into these different assets, and to keep our town moving in the right direction economically, you still got to speak about resilience and the fact that you have microgrids that are possibly self-sustaining, if not also like sort of maybe a backup, if you will, in these corridors to maintain power throughout the corridor and keep the business open. I think that's something that's worthwhile to explore. And I'm sure there's certainly some federal funding out there for an endeavor like that. And I think we need to be strategic when we think about it as well. Think about, okay, how is downtown going to operate? But we have other places that we're, having discussions about that are economic centers, right? I mean, we just talked about the Kmart Plaza. We just talked about Essex Green. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. And of course, we have a town asset in the form of Rock Spring. So let's think about this. Let's bring this into the conversation as well. Thanks. That's all.
If I can chime in there. So
Ron?
Yeah,
I'll look for you to help me out, Ron.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys kind of teeing up the conversation. So, and it's something that is actually very near and dear to me is for the past, 15 or 20 years as a engineer and developer of energy infrastructure. I've been involved with developing and leading projects. One of most recent ones specifically to a municipality microgrid was completed in the town of Hartford. And you talk about the resiliency aspect for a cluster of buildings like the police department, town hall, the library. In the event of a storm, you have an energy producing epicenter that the community can congregate to. So certainly if there's a robust discussion to be had on that, I'll be more than happy to lend my expertise and help shepherd this conversation further.
Thank you, Ron. Is there any other questions, comments?
Just want to acknowledge that Council President Susan McCartney has joined us. Council President, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, welcome, Councilwoman.
No questions, just curious, sit and listen. Thank you. So
Thank
far,
you.
so good.
Join us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And
definitely
it looks
about
like
the, access to the internet. Mm-hmm.
Madam Councilwoman, McCartney,
Yes,
can you
sir.
repeat yourself? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You have any comments?
Oh, no, I just said I'm just curious, just sitting in, listening in.
Great.
And
Well,
I do
welcome.
appreciate the conversation about, children having access.
Yeah,
So that is
yeah,
something, yeah.
it's important. So I don't know if you heard the conversation, but we'll be meeting with Congressman Payne in regards to infrastructure money, and part of that is, of course, the reach of broadband and data throughout the township.
So the township has already put together an infrastructure plan, so that, that whatever that conversation is, I think you need to have that with our town engineer, Lenny Lepore, and our business administrator. They,
John.
I don't have it
John.
handy, but
Okay.
they have already submitted millions of dollars to Congressman Payne. They have already submitted a plan. So we have to make sure that all of these other components get included in that plan. It has to go through the engineer and the business administrator.
Okay, bear with me. I'm sorry.
No, I'm taking notes myself. That's what.
So Councilwoman John Gross has this plan?
There is a plan, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. That they were put together as soon as they heard about the funding available, they put a plan together. But I'm sure it can be expanded, and just to make sure that everyone that is looking for funding is included in that plan.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great to hear. Thank you so
Right,
much.
that's a conversation that needs to be had, to find out what you're saying is that, how would that fit in the plan that they've already submitted? And it wasn't a plan, it was just a list.
Yeah,
If and when this funding comes out in the forms of different grants, how do we plug in what we need?
Okay, got you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much,
You're
Councilwoman.
welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments as it pertains to infrastructure? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move to the next order of business and public comment. We are now coming on about an hour of our particular meeting, but I see that there are some people who have joined, and would welcome them if they have any comments or concerns, or just some questions about the economics and development of the town. So this is open forum, and would love to hear from anybody who may have any comments or concerns. I also want to acknowledge Al Russo, who's on the commission, who has joined us as well.
All right, so seeing no questions from the public, we'll just go ahead and close the public comment. And then, Mr. Chairman, do you want to set a date for the next meeting?
Yeah, why don't we, Madam Councilwoman, to the committee, one of the things I want to ask the committee as well, I think we have 3 open seats for Economic Development Commission that I need to take to the mayor. I'm asking the current members to, if they have a recommendation, to submit those individuals' names and their resumes so that we can review them and submit those to the mayor. He may have some appointments on his own, but I will have this conversation with him next week. So if I could get those, if you guys who are currently on the committee have any suggestions, I welcome them, or the resumes of individuals who you think that may benefit the Economic Development Committee. If I could get those by Wednesday of next week, that would be great. So I can take a look at those and then have the mayor look at those.
Mr. Chairman, you have a hand up. Todd's phone. There's a hand up there.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see it on my screen. By all means, go. Oh, Todd. Todd, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. How are you?
All right. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
I guess I just have a quick question in terms of the way the town utilizes different zoning principles, I guess. How is the town utilizing form-based zoning in any way in order to kind of map out a plan town-wide? Or is it resorting to and relying purely on spot zoning? Which spot zoning isn't really all that friendly to neighboring property owners. So I'm curious to get some input on the perspective on that.
No problem. Ms. Adams, can you answer some of the
Sure.
Todd's question?
I know we definitely do not use spot zoning
Okay.
in West Orange.
Okay.
We
Thank
don't do that.
you.
It's actually
I was about to say,
illegal.
yeah, that's
Yeah, it's actually illegal to do, but Todd, I would welcome you to call me. I'm curious to know what you mean by form zoning. If you can define that for me, I've never heard of that before.
Form-based zoning is basically where there is a plan established that town-wide that establishes zoning for different areas of the town to do an organized development of the town in a way that's not haphazard. And
Sure, I understand.
that's kind of what it is.
So I understand. So then I've never heard it done, I guess, put that way, but yes, if you ever, you're welcome to listen in on our planning board meetings. We did our master plan in 2019, which we're required to do every 10 years. And there was a comprehensive plan done by our planner, Paul Greigel. It is online at westorange.org, and it goes through the entire town, residential, business, commercial, our redevelopment zones, and opportunities for economic development, as I presented earlier. So if you read that, I think you'll get a really good feel for how the town is zoned. It's our master plan in 2019.
Right. Were there big changes made to the master plan that, or was it kind of business as usual?
There were a few changes and some recommendations that the council did not vote on, but there were changes to the master plan into the zoning map, yes.
Here's a question for you. Relating to your mention that we don't do spot zoning, would you consider granting of major variances to developers for a given site above and beyond what the given code is to be a form of spot zoning? So,
Chairman, I know this is not economic development. I'm going to welcome him. I'm going to give him my phone number and email so we can speak. But if
no problem.
But so our zoning board is booked till June because of what we do, because we are giving variances. We have major developers coming into zones where those uses are not permitted. Perfect example, the Exxon station, the old, it actually was the old Amico around Pepe's between Mount Pleasant Avenue. Okay, so that was a D variance for a CubeSmart. That was just done 2-3 months ago. The old atrium that was in foreclosure, that's going to be an assisted living, a D variance, a non-permitted use in a B zone. Right. So I would welcome you to go online, westorange.org, follow our zoning board meetings, and you will see that the zoning board does give those type of variances. Not all the time. Obviously, those are D variances. Those are not permitted uses. And there are things that the board, we have a very smart zoning board with attorneys, architects that really delve into these applications and make sure that these applications and these businesses are best for the township and for that particular area.
But we don't have a town planner.
We do have a town planner, Paul Greigel. I work
well,
with him.
He's not full-time.
But can we stay focused? I just want to pull us back into economic development as opposed to, it sounds like you guys are going to talking about more of planning and how we function as a township. So I just want to pull us back and welcome you to give Ms. Gary Adams a call directly so that you can have any additional questions answered.
Thank you, Councilwoman. My number is 973-325-4119. And my email is also on my phone, my office phone, and anytime you're welcome to speak to me and Paul, and we can conference you in. Have a
What
great
was the
evening.
last four digits of the phone number? 325.
325-4119. That's my direct line in my
Gotcha.
office. And it also
Okay.
has my email address, and Paul and I, we can sit and speak with you anytime. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman, may I add to Janice's comments?
Sure.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. So when it is all about the master plan, I'm not familiar with the form base either. And we did just do that in January 2019. And some of the changes that were made was allowing this cannabis, the new cannabis legalization in the business zone and industrial zone. There were a couple of other properties that we do want to preserve. And we added the film district in our redevelopment zone, as you are well aware of that. So those were really major changes that happened to our master plan.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Appreciate that. Does anybody have any other questions or comments or concerns? My last comment is I want to thank everybody.
Mr. Hawk
here.
has his hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm sorry. Again, please forgive me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes.
I'm a
How are
resident of West Orange. I'm not on the board. I was a long time, I was chairman of the Board of Construction Appeals for many years. I functioned in West Orange as an architect for about 20 years and then went into economic development consulting nationwide. But I want to give you guys a lot of thumbs up and credit because I've been around here a long, long time. And I've watched a lot of people, a lot of boards come and go. A lot of the things that you're trying to tackle, we've been trying to do for 20, 30 years. But I think there's more energy suddenly. And I think there's more cooperation and more, just general better attitude about things. I've seen a lot of administrations come and go through the town. I've seen a lot of planners come and go. I'm a planner. I'm a retired planner, retired architect myself, but I've seen a lot of efforting going on. We used to do charrettes for trying to get, one of the things many years ago, and I think it's still important, is to recognize that the night visitor, as they travel through the town, our shops ought to be well lit, well signed, attractive. So as they pass by on a county road like Main Street, they come back in the daylight. That's the idea. But I think you guys are doing a great job. And I just wanted to put my 2 cents in and say congratulations on the commission. And I can't be on it. I've got too many conflicting development things that I'm doing, but I'd like to be able to offer our services. I mean, we're based here in West Orange, but we are a national company. And we do a lot of economic development thinking and a lot of economic impact analysis. So if you have a technical problem that you want to know what maybe the direct or indirect benefits or something might be, please consider us. Because I think once we set it up and engage it, it's rolling and it's easy to hit many projects and many targets. So
Mr. Hawk, would you please,
resources are here in town for you to use for people like me.
would you please make sure you send us your contact information? It will be john@westorange.org.
Well,
I'll put it in the chat, and tWilliams@westorange.org. I'll put those both in the chat for you.
I would love to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your comments. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions or comments? And again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, I know that everybody has time constraints and commitments. I want to really thank Madam Councilwoman Williams and Madam Councilwoman McCartney for joining us, as well as Adore, who's also is our Democratic chair here in West Orange, Ron. And thank you so much, Ms. Adams. I so appreciate all your insight. I learned a lot today. I'm going to make the recommendation that one of those seats, whether it's you or somebody from planning, join us here on the Economic Committee. So that will be one of the conversations I have with the mayor. I think it's imperative that we do that. If anybody doesn't have any other questions, concerns, and then Councilwoman Williams, do you have any additional comments?
No, I think this was an excellent meeting. I too am excited about the opportunity to just position West Orange as favorably as we can be the recipient of the millions of dollars that will be flowing through so many different municipalities, just to make sure we're eligible. We are certainly in need and at the ready to poise our community in its best position. I think the only thing we have is just setting a date for our next meeting.
Yeah, why don't we calendar out, I will have an email for all the current commissioners and basically also looking for dates that they can attend. It will probably be maybe the third week in February. I'm probably looking at once I have the conversation with Congressman. And that way I can have some information brought back from the committee. Also, the recommendations, I would like to have those recommendations at least for 2 other members, because I'm going to recommend that somebody from planning or zoning is one of the other members on the committee. All right.
Thank you.
So unless there's any other readiness, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 7:19. Councilwoman Williams, if you wouldn't mind, we'll get into a recap of agenda and notes until we find a parliamentarian who can do that.
We will we'll take the recording for the meeting and post it on the websites for those who are interested in what the Economic Development Commission is doing.
All right, sounds good. All right, everybody, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it and look forward to talking to you all soon.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Night
it.
all. Stay
Stay
safe.
safe. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.